Hey everybody, Sean with the Good Dog with TGD's pop-up Q&A, and Bart Miguel has a question about e-collar and how to actually use it as Bart Miguel from Instagram. How to use the e-collar not just as a corrective device, but as a layering tool to actually form behaviors, and then later on proof them, but not just as like, no, don't dig in the trash, or no, don't chase the cats, or no, don't dig in the yard, but actually like the more complex, nuanced e-collar training, which is all about like low level pressure and guidance and creating behaviors, and then how to move through that system. So there's a lot of different approaches, a lot of different trainers have their own way of doing it, and so this isn't the only way, this just happens to be our way. See if I can lay it out kind of clear and concise. So basically, once the dogs know the behavior, and we typically teach it on leash and prong, so there's some variation in there, but just as kind of an overall rule, so we can make this concise, teach the behaviors on leash and prong so the dog knows what the behaviors are, and then we add, while still using the leash and prong for guidance, because e-collars don't give any directional guidance, remember that's super important. E-collars, like even if a dog knows to sit, down, place, recall, any of that stuff, they still need directional guidance because the e-collar is just a sensation. It doesn't give direction like the prong gives sensation and direction, right? Super important. So once the dog knows the basics of the behaviors, then you can start layering the e-collar over it. We have a 4-step process. So the first step is we're basically looking for the dog's motivational level. That's a level that the dog cares about enough to actually want to do something about the stim, to actually want to turn it off. Not worried about it, not freaked out about it, but motivated enough to say like, yeah, I want to turn this off. This is like mildly annoying, mildly uncomfortable. So you find that level. That's a challenge in and of itself, but that's a challenge before you. So say we'll just use sit as the model for this. So you press the button, simultaneously say sit, press the button, guide the dog gently up with the leash and prong if the butt doesn't go to the ground, and then when the butt hits the ground, the button goes off, you say good. Oh, it's a lot of stuff to remember all at the same time, especially with all these people walking by like trying to keep my train of thought. So, right, let's try this one more time. So, e-collar in one hand, be the right hand, leash in the left hand, dog's ready to sit, dog already knows to sit from leash and prong. You simultaneously say sit, press the button, hold on continuous at the motivational level. You hope that the truck driving by doesn't explode and burst into flames, because it sounds like it's going to. When the dog's butt hits the ground, button goes off, you say good, mark it, or yes, depending on what your marker is. Leash pressure goes away. Now, if the dog didn't sit, that leash pressure would have been up to help guide them. So that's the first step. You do that over and over again until the dog is responding really nicely. That's step 1. Step 2 is you say sit, press and hold the button at the same level, but as the dog starts to move towards the sit and starts to get in there, you start to actually get off the button sooner. So you don't need to hold the button until the dog's butt hits the ground in completion. Once the dog's butt hits the ground in completion, then you mark it with good or yes. Bigger talking with this kid. Does that make sense? So basically we've got press and hold with guidance until the butt hits the ground, the full duration of the exercise. Butt hits the ground, button goes off, mark it with good, leash pressure relaxes. Step 2, sit, buttons on simultaneously, leash pressure guidance if needed. As soon as the dog is moving towards it or is decently committed, button goes off, you wait, butt hits the ground, mark it with good or yes. Then you move to third step, right? And in that second step, just let me clarify, Bart, that as the dog's getting better and better and quicker, you want to be getting off the pressure sooner and sooner. Think of it as a reward, right? So think of it as the dog starts to give you more and more compliance, you're getting off the button sooner and sooner and sooner, so the dog's learning, oh, I get to like actually remove this pressure quicker by doing a better job. So 3, you actually say sit and simultaneously tap the button at that same level. Leash guidance if necessary, likely it shouldn't be necessary at this point. So sit, tap the button, butt hits the ground, mark it with good or yes, make sure there's no leash pressure if it was needed, rinse and repeat until that's looking good. And we're talking about over the course of days. So this doesn't happen like in one session. This should be happening over the course of days as the dog gets better and better and better at understanding what's being asked of it. The fourth and final step is once the dog is rocking with prompts and just like sit, 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 looking really good with that, then you're going to go to step 4, which is you give the command, you do not tap the button, and if the dog doesn't comply, then you repeat the command and tap the button as a correction. Now we've moved to the final stage, which is the avoidance stage. So the first step is actually escape training, right? The dog escapes the pressure by completing the exercise. By the final stage, we put like some extra stages in the middle to help make it easier on the dog. By the final stage, you've actually gone to avoidance training, which is the dog gets to avoid the stim altogether by performing the exercise. So that's really the 4 steps of it, right? So press and hold throughout the duration until you get the completion of the exercise. Then 2, press and hold until you're getting commitment, decent sized commitment, and then let go of the button and then start moving off the button sooner and sooner. Step 3, tap as what we call a prompt to get the dog to sit. Boom. When that's looking good, then you're off the button completely. You ask for a sit, and if you don't get the sit, then you repeat the command and tap the button simultaneously as a correction. And you may need to come up on the level a bit to make that happen. So I hope that clarifies. It's a lot to digest and it's a lot to cover in just a few minute video like this, but I hope it gives you a framework to see how it works. Basically, to get the dog to understand to turn off the pressure, and you guide them going through the process. Then you teach them that they slowly can get better and better and beat the pressure and beat the system and beat the game by the pressure going away sooner. Then it's just a tap, and then there's no tap at all, and then it's just a correction for non-compliance once they know something fairly and are able to complete it. And then you move from there and you start adding distractions and all that stuff, and you start proofing and blah, 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 blah. And then you can use the e-collar for a variety of different things. So now the dog knows, is that corrections? The dog should not have to be prompted. The dog should not have to be press and held to do a sit. The dog should be sit, and if he doesn't, correction. And then, of course, you have it for all the other things that you might need an e-collar for, which are like, oh, whole parade. Everybody wants to learn about e-collars. So then you can use for all the other things, like I said, other correction stuff, chasing cats or digging holes or getting in the trash or counter surfing, things like that. That's still on the table. But what I just shared is the more complex, nuanced version of modern e-collar training with low levels. Now, of course, you can include food in this as well. Sorry, my arm's getting sore. You can include food with this as well when you give the marker, when the dog's completed it, if it helps, right? Always remember if it helps. So if you're using food and your dog's too distracted by the food, too jazzed up, too amped up, too worked up, to actually focus, and they're just looking at the food constantly, wouldn't use food. If your dog's super like lackadaisical and is not motivated, then I would add some food into it and see if you can get them more motivated, and you've got to find the sweet spot with that. So hopefully that covers a bit of the overview of more complex, more nuanced, low-level e-collar training and how we kind of move through the process at TGD. Hope that makes sense. Well, let me know if you have any questions. See you guys. Bye.